Senator from New Hampshire.
Mr. President, I'm really pleased to be on the floor this afternoon with my friend and colleague, Senator Rob Portman, to talk about an issue that we have been working on literally for a decade. And it's been a bipartisan effort to focus on energy efficiency as a response to the energy needs in this country. In 2011, Senator Portman and I introduced S-1000, which was the first version of the Energy Savings and Industrial Competitiveness Act. Over the years, it's been known as Shaheen-Portman when we were in the majority on the Democratic side, or Portman-Shaheen when the Republicans were in the majority. But it doesn't matter what you call it. Our bill has proposed substantial investments in energy efficiency in this country. And what we did in the bill was to focus on the most energy-intensive sectors in our economy, so buildings, residential and commercial, which is about a third of our energy use, the industrial sector, and the federal government. And in the United States, the biggest user of energy is the federal government. In a Congress that's divided along partisan lines on so many issues, energy efficiency is one priority that can bring us together on a bipartisan, bicameral basis to get things done. I always like to say that energy efficiency is one of those energy sources that you can support whether you're from New England or Ohio or Wyoming, whether you support oil and gas or wind and solar. Energy efficiency is the fastest, cheapest way to meet our energy needs. Our legislation has always focused on low-cost tools and adoption of off-the-shelf technologies to save money for consumers and businesses, to make America more energy independent, and to reduce emissions. And over the years, over the last decade, we've had some big wins. In 2015, President Obama signed a targeted version of Shaheen-Portman, the Energy Efficiency Improvement Act, into law. That bill helped align the interests of commercial building owners and their tenants to reduce energy consumption, and it allowed certain water heaters to help with demand response programs in rural areas. Now, we've also made great strides through annual appropriations and administrative actions on things like energy efficiency standards for appliances. Of course, we've also had some real defeats. But though frustrating those defeats were, our resolve on this bill has never wavered. And when we reintroduced Portman-Shaheen last Congress, we worked to again incorporate feedback from stakeholders. For 7 months, our staffs held back-to-back meetings with constituents, stakeholders, and committee staff to ensure the bill addressed the energy needs in New Hampshire, Ohio, and the rest of the country. Improving the efficiency of residential and commercial buildings through energy-saving building codes remains central to our bill, as did industrial energy efficiency provisions and improvements to federal energy efficiency programs. We also again included energy efficiency bills from our colleagues. So in that piece of legislation, we included Senators Murkowski and Manchin's Federal Energy and Water Management Performance Act. We included Senators Hoeven and Manchin's All of the Above Federal Building Energy Conservation Act. And we included Senator Collins and Warner's legislation coordinating energy retrofitting for schools. Finally, as part of that, we included Senator Bennett and Senator Isaacson's Sensible Accounting to Value Energy Act, or the SAVE Act. So there were a lot of reasons why a number of members of this body were interested in that legislation. But it was also a real savings, because according to the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, the policies from that bill would save consumers over $51 billion on their energy bills. It would reduce carbon emissions by 1.3 billion metric tons, which is the equivalent of taking 280 million cars off the road for a year, and it would save 32 quadrillion BTUs of energy, which is nearly the total energy use of all U.S. industries for 1 year. Now, a previous study from ACEEE also estimated that the legislation would add more than 100,000 jobs to the economy. That bill passed the Energy Committee by a vote of 14-6, and it was the fifth time the bill passed in committee on a bipartisan basis. Now, I'm proud to say that the Energy Policy Act of 2020 that was signed into law by President Trump at the end of last year had several provisions from that Shaheen-Portman legislation that would streamline efficiency for schools, increase energy efficiency for federal data centers, and provide rebates for energy-efficient electric motors and transformers, and support federal energy efficiency programs. But, of course, the piece of that bill that was left on the cutting room floor were the voluntary building codes where so much of the savings was really incorporated. But despite the success and the defeat in the last Congress, we came into this year as determined as ever. And as part of the original Gang of 10, Senator Portman and I teamed up to ensure that energy efficiency was a big part of the bipartisan infrastructure framework. We worked with Senator Manchin and our bipartisan colleagues to incorporate much of Shaheen-Portman with funding in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And I'm going to turn it over to Senator Portman for a few minutes so my voice can recover, and then I will pick it up when he finishes.
Mr. President. Senator from Ohio. Well, first of all, it's great to be on the floor with my friend Jeanne Shaheen and talk about something positive, something that we've been able to accomplish over the years. As she said, we've been at this over a decade, which is to encourage more energy efficiency. This is the ability for us to save energy by not using it. It's therefore sort of energy found. It's also an ability to improve the economy because it creates more jobs and makes us more competitive globally by having lower energy costs. Think about the businesses in your state. The competitive nature of business today is that you're really competing with the Europeans and the Japanese and the Chinese and so on. And if you have higher energy costs and you're not energy efficient, you're not going to be competitive. But if you're competitive, it adds jobs, makes the economy stronger. So the way I look at it, if you're interested in lower emissions and a better environment, and at the same time you're interested in a better economy and creating jobs, then energy efficiency is the low-hanging fruit. That's the thing we can all agree with. And I applaud Senator Shaheen because she's been patient. We've both been patient, as our staff has been over the years, in getting pieces of our legislation in various bills that have passed this United States Senate and the House of Representatives and signed into law by President Obama, President Trump, and now President Biden. The most recent one was the infrastructure bill. And it's exciting what we were able to get in there in terms of encouraging a better, more sustainable use of our energy resources in both the public sector and in the private sector. Importantly, energy efficiency is also an important part of a more reliable and resilient grid, which was part of our legislation, improving the electrical grid. We've had some pretty severe weather events over the last year. As you know, I was just in Kentucky over the weekend, my neighboring state, helping out on the cleanup there. And boy, electricity was out everywhere. By improving energy efficiency, we can reduce demand, taking pressure off our power grids, and help create more stability. These are some of the reasons why, since 2011, we've worked together to promote this energy efficiency bill called the Energy Savings and Industrial Competitiveness Act. Senator Shaheen called it Portman-Shaheen. I call it Shaheen-Portman because she's in charge now. The Senate is in the Democrats' majority, not ours. But we've worked together seamlessly. It's really been nonpartisan. And again, our goal has been really three different areas. One, residential and commercial buildings, because that's where we use a lot of energy. About 40% of the energy used in this country is used there. Also, to ensure that the federal government does a better job. You know, the federal government uses more energy than any other entity in the entire economy. By the way, it uses more energy than anybody in the world, and they don't do it very efficiently. In fact, there's a lot of energy inefficiency in our federal government. So practice what you preach, right? So you have the government telling everybody else they've got to be green, but the government itself is not green. So our legislation requires that the federal government take steps to make it more energy efficient as well. And then finally, the manufacturing sector. Here's where there's a great opportunity, and manufacturers are really excited about it because we can provide some incentives, some best practices, and so on to make them more competitive globally by improving their energy efficiency. We've created a big tent through this process, joining forces with our colleagues over the years for the purpose of supporting these kind of common sense energy efficiency measures. A number of senators have had important parts of our legislation. That includes Senator Wicker, Senator Bennett, Senator Collins, Senator Manchin, Senator Hoeven, and others, Senator Murkowski. Our legislation has been voted on by this body before. In 2016, it passed the United States Senate. It also passed out of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee 5 separate times with bipartisan support. By the way, in 2016, the vote was 85-12. Now, it's part of a larger energy package, but that was a pretty strong sign of bipartisan support for this. And it improved energy efficiency, in that case, in leased office space, and improved energy savings from water heaters, as an example. However, we've long recognized we need to do more to be able to save energy and save money. According to the U.S. Information Agency, Energy Information Administration, residential and commercial buildings accounted for 40% of total energy consumption. In addition, reports from the U.S. Department of Energy have found the federal government, again, is the single largest energy consumer in the country. And those studies have shown that our legislation as a whole would save consumers $51 billion on energy bills, reduce carbon emissions by 1.3 billion tons, not by hurting jobs, but by creating more jobs, because it would add more than 100,000 jobs to the economy. Over the years, our legislation has gained the support of industry, such as the National Association of Manufacturers, American Chemistry Council, U.S. Chamber of Commerce. It has support of commercial and real estate developers like BOMA and the Real Estate Roundtable, as well as from efficiency advocates and the environmental community, like the Alliance to Save Energy, called ACEEE. There's not a lot in Washington these days that has such a broad group of stakeholders supporting it. But there's a reason this legislation has received such broad support. It reduces emissions by reducing energy consumption. It also creates new jobs and lowers energy bills for consumers. And it does all this without putting any new mandates on the private sector. Particularly now, at a time of record inflation and rising energy costs, investing in improving energy efficiency is a smart way to help support hardworking families in Ohio and around the country. The good news is that now, with the bipartisan infrastructure bill signed into law, we are much closer to seeing the benefits for the American people become a reality. The infrastructure bill, which we co-authored along with a bunch of our colleagues, included a total of $2.5 billion for various energy efficiency projects. Included in these critical investments are a number of our provisions from Shaheen Portman. For example, we were able to include and fund programs to help incentivize contractors, home builders, and others to adapt and implement updated building codes. We were also able to fund programs that help career skill development, to help us train a workforce able to develop and install important new energy efficiency technologies. That's been one of our challenges. For example, we include funding to enhance the Industrial Assessment Centers program at the Department of Energy. This program allows students from around the country to conduct energy assessments and small and medium-sized manufacturers to improve their competitiveness, reduce waste, save energy, while at the same time training students in the field. By the way, it's these kinds of small changes and upgrades that can result in big emissions and cost savings for businesses all around the country. So I'm truly proud of what we've accomplished, including in the infrastructure bill most recently. And again, I want to thank my colleague, Senator Shaheen, for her tireless work to get this legislation across the finish line. Again, energy efficiency, the low-hanging fruit. I look forward to continuing our partnership on these important issues.
Mr. President.
Senator from New Hampshire.
Mr. President, I thank my colleague and partner in this effort, Senator Portman, and as he pointed out, on November 15th, President Biden became the third president to sign energy efficiency provisions from our bill into law. Now, we still have a lot of work to do, but I just want to recognize current and former Shaheen Portman staff who have helped us shepherd this bill through its many obstacles. From my staff, I want to thank Trent Bowserman, Robert Disnoff, Ariel Marshall, Drew Story, and Janelle DeLucia. From Senator Portman's staff, I want to thank Pam Thiessen, Steve Kittredge, Pat Orth, Sarah Perry, Lydia Dennis, and I would like to ask unanimous consent to enter the names of these current and former staff into the record.
Without objection.
Finally, I want to thank the chairs and ranking members of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee who played such a pivotal role over the years, Senators Manchin, Murkowski, Cantwell, and Wyden, and their staffs. Senator Portman talked about all of the various groups who have been involved in helping to move this legislation where we are today. So I won't go back over those, but I will say again, energy efficiency is a win-win-win. It creates jobs, it reduces costs to consumers, and it lowers emissions. And as our economy recovers and grows, the investments in energy efficiency from our bipartisan infrastructure package are going to make sure that we use energy smarter. And I'm going to continue to partner with Senator Portman and others so we can unlock the full potential of energy efficiency for our growing economy. Thank you. I yield the floor.